Hello everyone. You're listening to a webinar about the basics of electronic reporting. In that video, I'm only going to speak about the out-of-the-box electronic reporting programming. First, I'm going to explain to you what is electronic reporting and how it can be used in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. And in a second part, I'm going to show you a use case to generate a cross-company report, which I called spend report. But first, let's talk a little bit about myself. So my name is Antoine Bastien. I am a senior finance ERP consultant, and I've been working on Dynamics 365 Finance in Operation for the last 6 years in the UK, in Ireland, in Hungary, and in France. If you want to know a little bit more about myself, you can connect to my LinkedIn profile and you will see what I can bring on the table. But let's move on to the main topic of today, electronic reporting. So what is electronic reporting? Electronic reporting in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation is a tool that can be used for importing and exporting data above and beyond the capabilities of the static data entities. In previous versions, there were some shortcomings in some areas as payments or local reporting, and that tool helps us overcome those issues. And basically, it will cover those standard needs. You can generate payment files and configure those files. So, for instance, a SEPA credit transfer or a SEPA direct debit, which is a pay.008 file, or an international wire transfer for SWIFT payments. And any changes in those payment files can be done through configuration in electronic reporting. Then it also helps us comply with local regulatory requirements. So I'm just going to take an example in France. In France, we need to generate two kinds of reports, which are called DAS2 and FEC, and those two reports are generated through electronic reporting in the new version of Dynamics 365. You can also apply configurable business documents. So in previous versions, to generate business documents, you had to use the SSRS technology. And any changes in those documents would require a customization. Now in Dynamics 365, you can add new fields or change the layout of the business documents through configuration in electronic reporting. And finally, you can also build cross-company reports in that tool. And we basically, in the scenario I'm going to show you, that's the kind of report I'm going to build. So just about the structure of electronic reporting. So there is a workspace in Dynamics 365 where you can see all your reports. Here, the main structure is the data model. The data model is basically what kind of information you want to export here on your electronic reporting report. Then you have a model mapping, which is basically the link between the application data and the data model. And then you have the format, which is basically the format of the report, and then the link between the data model and the format through the format mapping. One important thing, in my opinion, is that the data structure of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation it needs to be understood, and for me it's a prerequisite to use that tool. if you don't know how the tables are linked, it will be harder to configure those reports. So let's go directly to an environment. So here is an electronic reporting workspace. The first action that needs to be performed is to configure a new provider. Why? Because all the reports provided by Microsoft cannot be amended directly. You need to do a kind of extension, and to do that, you create a new provider, and all the changes you make will be basically applied in that provider and not on the Microsoft provider. So how to create a new provider? Just go to configuration providers and click new, put a name, put an internet address. Most of the time that's the internet address of the company you are working for. And what's done, basically here, you can set that provider as active. Then I need to click on reporting configuration. And here I have my data model. You know the data model I talked about before? That's it. How to create a data model? I click on create configuration, root. You put a name to your data model and the description, and you click create configuration. Once you've done that, you click on designer. Here we go. That's my data model. So I have two parts here. I have my reusable data structure, which is the company info, item, ledger, party, purchase order. And then I have my operational data structure. This reusable data structure on the root level can be applied in the report section here afterwards. Why we do that is if you want to use those elements in different parts of the report, because it's reusable, you basically reference the structure here and apply that structure in your report. That's what I did here. For instance, for the company info, in which we have two fields, the company code and the company name. And I reference that structure here in my report section into the vendor invoices node. And you see I have an asterisk, and which is basically a reference to my reusable structure. And if I want basically to go back to my reference item, I just click on go to reference item, and you see it goes back to my reference item. So in my report I have two sections. I have a header section and I have a line section. So in my header section I have for instance my periods. So the report will basically export data from this date to this date. I have my report title, and then I have my line sections with all basically my vendor invoices data, plus some additional information as PO number, PO payment terms, the orderer, the PO line description, information about the supplier as well, the supplier address, supplier information, identification. So what's the VAT number of my supplier? So here basically I add all the fields I would need to basically apply in my report. How to add new nodes? Here just click on new, and then here you can build a hierarchy between different nodes and different types. So here vendor invoices, it's a record list because it contains more than one lines and more than one field. And then here I have fields information. So I have my due date, which is a date type, or I have my invoice line number, which is a real number, or I have my invoice quantity, which is also a real number, or I have my invoice line description, which is a string type. And basically that's all the nodes you need to specify in your data model here. Once your data model is completed, you need to click on Map Model to Data Source. Here is basically doing the data model mapping. Is to bind my data sources and my data model. So to basically specify the system where I fetch my information. You need to select the direction to model because in our scenario, we are willing to export data and not importing them. So that's why it's to model here. You put a definition, spend report, and then you click on designer. So in designer here you have two sections. You have the data sources section and you have your data model here. So you need to bind data sources and data model elements. How to do that? First, you need to add your data sources. So where your data are coming from. In my scenario, I want to do a spend report. So all the POs that have been invoiced. So I have a specific table records here called then invoice trans. So I just need to click on table records and add a root in my data sources. So when I add a source, I basically specify what is the table here. I also activated cross-company because it will be a cross-company report. And I also activated ask for query if you want to filter the data to export. So here is good. Then I have two user parameters because I want to ask the user to specify what is the date range. So from date to date, in that scenario, what I'm going to add in the data source is a user input parameter. So from date, which is basically this operation data type name, from name, and to date, which is here as well an enum here that I selected in the system. Okay, so that's waiting a little bit to process. So meanwhile, I'm going to explain as well what is the then invoices here. That's a calculated field. What is a calculated field? A calculated field can be used to filter the data from a table. So in that scenario, what I wanted to do is to filter all the data that needs to be exported in that date range. So I edit the formula. So you see, I filter this table and I only take data where the invoice date is between from date and to date, and the invoice quantity is more or equal to 0. Why we do that? Because we don't want to export credit notes, for instance. So this is really important as well. Then I also need to create two calculated fields to retrieve the financial dimensions data. Why do we need to do that? Because we have a couple of data model elements here that needs to be bound, and we have a business line, which is basically a financial dimension. We have a cost center, we have a cost center name, and we have the SSBN. And then we have the main account information, what's the expense account, associated with the spend. So what did I do? I basically added in that table here a new calculated fields. So I click edit formula, and here I only take the first line where in that table here, so ledger, dimensions, main account and dimensions, I only retrieve the first dimensions lines where the name equals to cost center. That's why also you need to understand what's the link between the tables in the background. And what are the links here? The links, if you go to relations here, you will see all the tables associated to that then invoice table. And in that table here, we have the source document line, which gives you basically information about the expense account. Then we have in that relation the accounting distribution. And in that accounting distribution, we have this specific section here that allows us to retrieve financial dimension values. So if you remember, on the table you have a field called ledger dimension, which is basically the link to the list of financial dimensions that are applied into the document. So here I only select the financial dimensions where the name is cost center to retrieve only the cost center line. I do the same for the SSBL. For the SSBL, I do the same formula to retrieve only the financial dimension lines where the name equals to SSBL. Then, after that, I can bind all my elements to data sources nodes. So for instance, here if I go to my vendor invoices table here, I have many fields I can bind. For instance, here I have my currency. So my invoice currency, I want to retrieve the invoice currency. So here I have my currency code. So I just need to select both entries and click on bind. And as soon as you have, well, for instance, let me show you. I'm going to unbind, and then I select both. I click on bind, and you see I have a link here. You click edit, and you can see that that's the field that will be fetched by your system. I do the same for the invoice date, invoice line amount, invoice number, invoice line number. Then I have the item information, so the item name, the item number. I have also the supplier item number, the procurement category code. How we do that? Basically, we have a relation with the procurement category table. So we need to find that table in the list here. Let me find that quickly. So relation procurement category.code. So let's find that information. Procurement category is called category here. So I expand that node here, and I can find here the code information. So I can find also the name of the procurement category, or I can find the code or other information that are stored in that table. If I go as well, here I created basically a formula here for OPEX CAPEX. So my formula is if I have a product ID, it means if the product ID is null, it means I will populate OPEX, but if it's not empty, I populate CAPEX. Then we have also the party information, for instance, the address. So you see it's a bit more complex to find the city, the country, the street, or the zip code. So for the city, you see I need to go to the then invoice journal table, then I need to go to the order account table, then the party table, and then in the logistics postal address table, in which we can find the city field. Or you can just put a fixed text in a specific field. For instance, here in my field called source system code, I put D365. Once it's done, I can basically close that page, close this one as well. I close my data model. And then I go back here and I click on change status and complete. Once my data model is completed and my data model mapping is also completed, I need to specify my format. So what will be the output of my report in terms of format? So what did I do? I just basically created a new configuration and I selected format based on spend report. So you put a name for your format, then you put a description. What's the type of the format? It should be Excel, PDF, text, Word. And what's the data model linked to that, and in which version? Once it's done, it creates, you see, a child node here, and I need to click on designer. So what do you do here? Here I'm importing my Excel templates, which created all the nodes here. So to find the Excel template, I go to View, Attachment. I have my Excel templates here. I click on Open. That's my Excel template here. So like from date to date, and all the fields I would like to populate on my report, which is the PO line description, the cost center code, the cost center name, and so on. And for each field, basically I have my tab spend. I have here a table. That's a table I have here. And for each field, I need to specify a name in my Excel. So I need to use a name formula, and for each field I say, okay, affiliate code is called affiliate C, affiliate is affiliate, supplier code is supplier code, and so on. The same for from date and to date, the same for the report title, which will be the name here. And for each named cell, it will create the value here when you import it. How we import? We click import, import from Excel, and all basically your format is built by itself. And each cell you see here is referred to a named cell in the Excel. So you see that that cell is named SuperCity in the Excel template. The same for Linum. Linum is named Linum in the Excel template. Once you do that, you need to do a mapping between your Excel output and your data model. So you have two sections. You have here your format, and then here you have your data model. And for each field, you specify from date will be retrieved from this field data model. Report title is bound to report title here. And we need to do that for all the fields. One important thing as well is the table here. So list here is the name of the table in the Excel spreadsheet. Needs to be bound to the record list, the line record list in the data model, because you will have unlimited number of lines in your Excel report, and to specify that, you say that this table is related to this table record, and then all the fields are bound together. So item name, I go to item name, and I click on bind. And I do that for all the fields. Then I can validate here, and I just have a small warning about when it's an empty list, which is not an issue. So now it works. So once it's done, I close. I change the status of my format to completed, and then I can run the report. So to run the report, I'm just going to select the format, click on run. Here, if you remember, in my data model and in the data model mapping, I inserted two user parameters, from date to date. So here I specify from to date. I can also filter on the purchase order number, on the line number, on the invoice number, and so on. Because on the table record in the data model mapping, we activated ask for query. And we can also run this report by batch. For instance, you want to generate the report once a month or daily, you can specify that here. Once you populate your parameters, you just click OK, and Dynamics 365 is going to generate the report. You see, you have this report here generated, which is an Excel report, and you can see all the fields populated when you have, of course, data in the system. If it's you don't have any data in Dynamics 365, it will be blank. So here I have two legal entities. So it's a cross-company report. We have a ADVB and another entity here. I have my supplier code, supplier name, my supplier group, the supplier address, the street, the zip code, the city, the country. Then I don't have any DUNS number here, or I don't have a VAT number. I have my invoice line amount, I have my invoice date. I'm just going to show you how to basically specify the date format, because you see the date format here is the same. I have my report title here specified, and of course here my call center code, my call center name, my SSBL, my business line, what's the expense account associated with this invoice quantity, and so on. So here we go, you have your report and you can use that report. Now I'm just going to show you how we can name the report and how we can also transform data in terms of format. So I go back to my format here, Spend Report, Excel. I go to Designer. And here I have a transformation here. I have a transformation with a formula, which is a specific electronic reporting programming formula. So that format, the parameter, the format will be days, month, year. So that will be basically my formula. And then what do? I apply that transformation here into the field from date. You see transformation, date format, to date, date format, and the same for the invoice date here, date format. That's the one thing. The second thing is to specify the file name. So to specify the file name, you select here the root node, then you go to mapping, and here you see you have a file name section here. I just click on the pencil here to edit the file name, and I populated a formula which is concatenates the report header. So here report title, so I put report title and what is the source system name. So that's why here we have spell report Dynamics 365 in the name of the report. So you can use many functions here to specify the name. So for instance, we could put the from date to date in the name, or whatever we need, and we can basically take information from the data model. So I could include, for instance, the invoice. I don't know if I have any data I would like to invoice in my name. I could do it. But of course, here I won't include any line details because I could have many lines. But I could any header information can be put in the name of the file. Okay, so that's it in Dynamics 365. So just a couple of slides because I really want to focus on data model because that's the basis of your report. That's basically the structure of your report. And here you see I have two parts. I have my reusable data structure here, and I have my operational data structure. So this structure here is the one that will be used in the report, and those one are the one that will be referenced in the report, like like a reference notes. So thank you for listening. So if you need help build a report, you can contact me, or you can also go to Danagile Consulting website, and we can help you in any international project or any task you have in your ERP. Thank you for listening, and bye.